can't believe that this stuff has been up actually for since April.
So what's next?
Psychonauts 2. And have a cupcake. I just feel compelled to do this now because it's like a habit. But I want to say happy birthday to Psychonauts and congratulations to the Psychonauts team that's still here and has survived or thought of anything better to do or have done that and then come back.
Oh, Psychonauts. Oh, yeah, we should talk about Psychonauts anniversary. 10 years. That's crazy.
Between us old timers, we can remember anything about that old game. It's been a long time.
Like, gosh, it just doesn't feel like 10 years have gone by already. I mean, when you think about everything that's come out from the studio since then, it does. But, you know, there's still some vivid memories, you know, making that game. So, mostly good memories at this point.
Whoa. We've got our community report from Spaff. Spaff, how's our community?
Psychonauts 10th anniversary stuff has been making people happy, sharing memories and generally talking about that, seeing some people streaming it and revisiting it, so that's pretty cool.
Similar like what we're talking about with all of Tim's games is just kind of an evergreen title that just continues to sell. It's still like our most popular game on Steam, and it's definitely the most requested game we ever get. Like anytime we put anything out or do any kind of newsworthy press, there's a comment about, like, when are you guys doing Psychonauts 2?
I mean, that would be awesome. That would be awesome to be making a sequel. I'll say that would be great to be making a sequel.
Sorry?
That would be great to make a sequel. I'm not against that, but it's hard. Costs money.
Speculation.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it was always on the horizon so many times. So he's like, dude, I think we might do it. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Like, and then I don't hear from him for a while. Dude, I think we're gonna do it.
Tim has said, you know, if we do it, he wants me to work on it. So, so I'm like, okay, let's go for it.
I had wanted to make that for a while. And it's the kind of game that I would want to play of all the games that we made. More than adventure games, more than RTS games, I think platformers, like action platformers, is what I'd like to do. I brought this. Dreamscape. Who wants Dreamscape? Dennis Quaid stars as Alex Gardner, a psychologically gifted young man. It looks just like Temple of Doom. It's got Kate Capshaw on it. Because this is like going back to, I'm trying to, in one way, put my head back into, like, where was I when I came up with that first idea? Like, what was going into my head? Just to kind of reconnect with what I was thinking then, and then, yeah, stuff that I've experienced since then.
But yeah, this, I believe, this did actually start. Like the original seed was for Psychonauts was like a sequence in Full Throttle.
The story is that making Full Throttle, I really wanted to explore interactive dream sequences. Specifically, I wanted Ben Throttle to take peyote and wander out into the desert and have a vision, and that somehow in the vision there was a secret to knowledge he had in his brain but he couldn't access. And so it was kind of like an interactive peyote trip. But there was a problem at Lucasfilm was much more, it's a family company. Peyote trip was a little bit much. And so I kind of shelved it. But I've always been interested in that idea that there's stuff in our minds that we don't know about like in our unconscious minds, and that if we could just get in there and dig around, we could uncover secrets that are in our own brain. I was kind of talking about this idea, and then one of the programmers from a team came in the office and was like, hey, tell me about this game idea about going into people's heads. And I was like, no, you don't go into other people's heads, you go into your own head. And then I was like, wait, that's much better. That's much better. Going into other people's heads is much better. And then there was another time where I think we were at lunch with friends from work, and someone said something kind of strange, and another friend just stared at them and said, what color is the sky in your world? So what color is the sky in your world? And I just kept thinking about that phrase. Yeah, if you could go into someone's world, like what color is the sky in their world? You don't want to hear these stories. Psychonauts, look, my handwriting was better than, oh, well, maybe it's a summer camp. Summer camp isn't bad. If the whole place is bad, who cares if you win? It has to be a good place, a happy place, and they're training you to be in the Psychonauts. It was a good day. That was a good day. Sometimes in the book you just write out everything, get everything done. And then that's when the idea really took off in my head. All these metaphors, different paranoias or fears or mental hang-ups, what that would look like in their mind, and then it's just like one idea after another started coming up. And eventually, when I left the company, and I left the company for a couple of reasons. One was just wanting to have control over what I was doing and what I created, because of that incident where I had heard secondhand that they were going to make a sequel to Full Throttle, and I wasn't involved, and that felt so creepy because I felt such a personal ownership over that character in that world. And I realized I didn't own it, and it was fair. So if I really wanted to own my own stuff, I'd have to take a risk on starting my own company. Nice packing job. On the 26th of July, which is my birthday, and it's not that way on purpose, was the first day that Dave Dixon, our first lead programmer, could start work. So he's like, I can start that day, and I was like, okay, that's weird. That's my birthday. This is the first page of us brainstorming ideas for the company name. Hella Fun, Quitco. We're so excited about quitting. Soul Patches. We all had soul patches. Double Fine. That was still a fun time. Like starting your own first company, it's still so crazy. Like you're like looking at the walls, you're like, this is my company. I started as that person works for me. That's so weird.
Ow! 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 Hey, check me putting this shelf in. Ow! A party! I don't know if you've heard about that cool garage, but it's pretty punk rock garage.
So what was the experience like being at the original Claire office?
It was interesting.
It was very, very cold in the winter, and so we had these space heaters, and when you plug them in, the power would completely go out in the entire building.
I think at the time, there's definitely some difficulties when it comes to just the facilities, right?
And of course, there's these exploding toilets that we used to get when the rain came. The junkies.
There it is. Our first dirty needle. Yeah.
It's a terrible time when somebody was getting a blowjob outside on our big metal garage door, but they were banging up against it.
So there's some hazards about it, but it was really good for parties. These are the priorities you have when you're starting a company when you're in your 20s, right? I can't believe we actually could afford a band for this. I know. And my wife, that's where I met her. She could go to one of those parties. And being able to I made everyone's desk at first. I mean, there were these cheap IKEA desks, but I hadn't stained them. I let them pick, what color do you want? And like mix the stain. And like, this is really important to our company, is that I hand make you so you feel like I made you, there's your desk. There's Dave. Smart choice of desk color, Dave. I've got to commend you on that. Really tasteful. Blue is what? Blue shite. Oh, speaking British. And they were really structurally unsound too, so we had to get rid of all of them. But I was sitting there sanding desks on the weekends. Back then, I think I was thinking a lot about just cultural fit. You know, like, will this person, work out here? And, it's like almost 15 years later for some of those people, so. I was at least right 50% of the time.
Like Timmy.
What?
You have nice friends.
They're really nice.
Really nice guys.
They're all very nice. You talk to Dave. I feel like you can tell when you meet somebody whether they're just like the kind of person who gets involved in things with their whole person. They were just like, I'm gonna give everything I have to this game, and you could tell that when you met them. 13 years for Qi Chi. Where's Qi? Qi Chi, 13 years. Well, it says 13 years, but it does mention an outage for about a year, but I would never draw attention to that to make you feel uncomfortable. Otherwise, that would make you tied with another person, but it gave someone else a slight edge. Happy 13-year for real anniversary to Anna Kipnis. Holy crap. Well, welcome to the company. Okay. I don't know if I ever said that before, but welcome to both of you. And Scott, I only knew Scott a little bit because we both worked at Lucas, but I worked at LucasArts and he worked at Lucas Learning. There, handsome man. Who's a handsome boy?
I remember exactly when I was turned to being super into him, like where I was like, oh, this guy's a super genius. And it wasn't from his games or anything like that. It was mostly, he sent this company-wide email out one time about something he discovered on email, like to do, like he figured out how to do something. And the way that he wrote it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was so funny, dude. I was like, this guy, like, he's used the medium of email, like he's mastered it already, you know? Like that's like masterful writing, like just from email writing. So after that, I was like, I love this dude. I'd see him around and be, oh man, that's that guy. He's so funny, man. That email is so funny. When Tim first came to me for Psychonauts, he was like, when he was pitching me the game and stuff, he was talking a lot about like Rankin Bass, like stop motion stuff, you know, which is already really interesting because you're looking at like, those are like, you know, 50s illustrations that they successfully turned into 3D and stuff like that. So like it was really cool to imagine a stop motion like world like that. And I loved how he thought about like that, like doing 3D, trying to make it not look like real humans, but make it look like it was little toys and stuff. So that was super attractive. But I know that he hired me because to art direct it because he was wanting it to be the style of kind of my paintings at that time.
I went to one of his art shows and he had this this piece that we have hanging up in the wall now, which is like from a show called Tongue Tied, where there are all these little pictures of people in awkward situations, and just looking at that, these little doodly drawings of characters, I was like, I've never seen anything like that in a video game. I've never seen characters like that ever in a video game. Brilliant, excellent, yes.
The kid head.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that, I couldn't tell. And that was the appeal, was like kind of an outsider's take on art. And I really felt it was important to hire people who were not just kind of from the mindset of games as they were, but like from the world of fine art or outside of games, to bring a really fresh look to it, because I didn't want them to look, I didn't want Double Fine games to look like other people's games. Could you please say your name?
Hi, I'm Peter Chan.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Could you please state your full name?
Peter Chan.
But there was a lot of just figuring out how to be a company. I forgot that part. We were starting a new company. So like figuring out how to like exist as a business entity. Okay, tell us what that is. Sell it, baby.
This is the box called X. Yeah,
all right,
it's huge.
Yeah, we were just, started out, and we were really, really lucky that the Xbox launched right then, because Ed Fries was running it, and he had this thing about games being more than games can be art, and I was like, that sounds like what I want to do.
I played video games. That was what I did when I wasn't at work. I mean, I loved video games and played them all the time. That was my hobby. So I have a lot of connections in the game group, and I'm calling on all of them.
Microsoft Games Group.
So I need content desperately, and just everywhere I'm trying to get these projects together.
I remember I was giving a talk at GDC, my very first talk at any conference, and it was about character design. And after the talk, Ed Fries comes up, who's running the studio, and he comes up. He's like, "I really like your talk. I want to talk to you about making games." And he put this down on the table. He's like, "I'm really excited about the stuff that we talked about." And he just left this on the table. Like this is the table. Let's get the drama. Here's the table. And he was like, "I'm really excited about the stuff we talked about. Hope to talk to you again in the future." So we signed the contract with Microsoft, and everything went smoothly. We shipped the game, and that's it. But other than that, we were having a lot of fun coming up with brain ideas, You know, just every person you could think of, like what color in the sky, what color was the sky in their world? We'd ask you like for every person, and I think things like the theater just came from thinking about that mental state of being bipolar and being really, really happy and switching between these two moods. Like, how could that be represented in a theater that like changes its sets really quickly or flips over? The Milkman Conspiracy was based on that character. It was really had a lot of conspiracy theories. But it didn't, in the original inception, it was like, well, his mind will represent that he's caught in a web of conspiracy. So his house will be in the center of this spider web of streets. And then Peter Chan drew it as like, wow, it's like all turned on the side. And he's like, what about this instead? And I was like, oh, that's a lot cooler. And the programmer was like, no, don't do it. And I was like, tough luck, come on, figure it out, it's fun. And so sometimes the whole concept for the level would come from that. And then we'd take that back and the level designers would go like, what can you do with a world that's twisted around on itself? What can you do with a world that's on a cube? It was just a really exciting collaborative time where everyone was inspiring each other to come up with crazy ideas.
It was an extremely ambitious project, and he had some pretty crazy high concept ideas for it that were going to be really challenging, I think, to pull off.
Dude, that seems like that seems hard, you know? A lot of worlds to figure out. But then when I was on the project, I was like, what the heck? We're actually doing this crazy thing. Okay, we're in it now.
Now it's like, there's so much knowledge that's like totally available, but in 2003, like no way. Like it was a bunch of people just trying to like play the games and figure it out, and it's really tough, you know? And if you haven't done it before and taken it all the way to the end, like you're not gonna have that kind of knowledge. And so just nobody really had that. Plus there were a lot of like green people that were right out of school.
Could you say your name, please?
I'm Raymond Crook.
Very well. And what is your position in this company?
Company grunt.
I remember he's like, well, how much do you want to get paid? And I'm like, I don't know. So I like threw out two numbers, you know, like a higher and a lower number, and he picks the lower number. And I'm like, okay. No, he did actually. I will say we were, you know, I wasn't very long in the project, like a month or a couple weeks, and we were working super late already. And I remember him pulling me aside and said, hey, I'll give you that little bit higher salary.
It's definitely an up and down ride. You know, a lot of late nights in the very beginning. I mean, everyone wearing a million hats to kind of, you know, spending the night to try to just get the theater level done to prove like what we can do and prove what the thing was like.
Everyone say hi. 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 I love Crunch Mode. Say it. Say it.
When I came on, I just assumed that these guys were all like hardcore veterans that knew exactly what they were doing. But I quickly realized that really nobody knew what they were doing.
Show me your bat. Make it do something. See the bat? Wow. You're trying to act like you know what you're doing, but you don't know what you're doing, and you're quickly trying to figure out what to do. And then once we had our first playable version of the game, we realized, we don't want to be like anything like this. This is playing terrible. Like we had a different version of the main character. He wasn't very compelling, and he moved really slow.
Because he's like, wow, this is not the leader of this cast of characters, you know? This guy with a stocking cap, he's so odd looking compared to all the other odd characters. So that's why we had to redesign him.
So he ended up throwing that version out completely almost and starting over again. So a lot of it was the throwing stuff out and starting over again learning process. Jeff Sauce. What are you working on?
You excelled by just sort of getting in there and doing it. You know, they're still trying to figure out the jump distances, and so I'm just like, well, let's give this a try, and we'll go from there. But you know, that's what you do when you first get a job in the games industry, is especially when you love it. That's just you work.
My best, most comfortable nights are sleeping on the floor sometimes. He's still asleep. I'm going to All-Star Donuts.
Wow. Late night? I'm just waking up.
And jokes were a lot funnier late night, you know? But yeah, I kind of enjoyed it in a weird way, but so.
Like, I was thinking about how we were working then, because I mean, there's a certain amount of naivety. Like, I think if I approach Psychonauts now, like, the amount of custom and reuse that we didn't do would be the stuff that I would be like really scared about now. But back then it was like, yeah, let's do it that way. There was a lot more naive optimism, maybe. I don't know. You know, whenever some like crazy new thing came up, we just did it instead of pushing back and thinking like, oh wait, I don't know if that's such a good idea.
That's our schedule. Look at that.
We didn't know exactly what we were doing in some regard. It was okay because that was part of the fun of the culture, and like even just working on your first game ever.
There was a lot of camaraderie, you know, there was a very family atmosphere. And it was also sort of like a in the trenches atmosphere. Like it was such a tough project. You know, everybody sort of really bonded together.
Oh my God! Best present ever.
But there's a lot of good memories. It was fun. I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was difficult, but it was actually a lot of fun.
Okay, here's Homie crossing the street. Homie crossing the street. He's going to the wrestling match. Something might happen.
I remember during the crunches, you know, we'd get food in, we'd sit in this room, we'd all be eating our Indian food, we'd watch Arrested Development on the TV, and those are some of the happiest memories I have of working on Psychonauts, but it was during the worst time of working on Psychonauts.
You crashed it, man. What did you do? For a long time, the game just didn't feel right, and it was really bugging us. We were building environments, but the character didn't feel right, and so we finally started the RAS action status meetings. So like, you know, what about sliding up the ladder, sliding down the ladder, getting off the ladder, jumping onto a tightrope, and like we just go over those every single time we met, which was, for a while, that was like every other day. And we just do it over and over and over again until he was snappy and felt really good. I'm New Dart, and I run and I lean.
Oh, he's got the little side run.
Isn't it cool how he leans?
Yeah, it's cool. Awesome.
But we still struggled to make a good, fun level. We're still having trouble just coming up with a level that really felt fun. After trying to make the levels for a while with level designers and artists, there was always these big fights back then about who owned the levels. Am I making the level and you're just making it pretty, or am I making this beautiful thing and you're just dropping in logic into it? You know. Eventually, I felt like I had to pick one side or the other, and even though things were starting to look kind of pretty in the game, things were not fun yet. So eventually, I don't even know if I want to go into all this stuff in the thing, but I fired my lead level designer. We promoted one of our level designers that we believed in was Eric Robson, made him the lead level designer, and then ended up clearing out the whole level design team. It was our first like 3 people fired on the same day. It's a horrible day, and then started again from scratch with these new world builders like Jeff Solis, who were very junior at the time, and there was a lot less acrimony, a lot less fighting, and things started getting done. But Microsoft was starting to become tired of waiting for the game to become fun, and we're like, you guys really have to make this game fun in the next 3 months, or we're gonna can the project.
Microsoft had reason not to trust us, didn't trust us, and we definitely felt that.
Eric just sat down with the current Black Velvetopia level and was like rethought the whole thing and came up with the bull running through it thing. We mocked that up, and that's the first time the game started feeling like a real game. We had the paintings you could hang, and it started coming together. And they came down and they checked it out. And I just remember they had a design consultant who knew a lot about games because he had been a tester at Nintendo. So they were like, he's going to tell you if your game is any good. And he's like, it's mildly pleasant.
So Microsoft must be particularly pleased with getting the nod for Best Original Game for its Xbox. Psychonauts won in that category. We're seeing it here. It's a unique game about Raz, a kid who goes to psychic summer camp to shape his psychic abilities. He then gets to control people's minds, almost like a combination of Stephen King's Firestarter and something from the X-Men. That should hit shelves next spring.
But the impression that I had was it was pretty close to shipping, which it definitely was not.
We had really started to find figure out how to make the game. You know, we were moving along at a good rate at that point, but it took us a long time to get there. I remember when we got a call, you know, we heard that there had been a change with the management.
Kind of came as a surprise to a lot of gamers, certainly, and to most of the industry when it was announced that you'd be leaving. I mean, what was the kind of thinking behind your decision to leave? Or
when I started in the game business, it was because nobody cared about it, and I could do it my way. And I'd either succeed or fail, but you know, I knew it was my decisions, and that's where it was going to go. Now, it's so important to the company that there's a lot of people who have opinions about how things should be done. And honestly, that was a difficult environment for me to work in.
Ed Freeze just quit. But everything's gonna stay the same, nothing's gonna change, but he just quit. I was like, oh, well, I wonder if that's gonna change anything.
After we'd heard everything's fine, I think it was the next day that everything wasn't fine, and we found out that we were canceled.
Well, for some reason they got nervous and they dropped it, and I feared that they dropped it in favor of the really middling title Voodoo Vince, which was a very pretty game, but not. This is, I think, going to be a winner.
Now, whose call would that have been?
I'm not 100%, but whoever it is, they should be.
All right, fair enough.
I guess there's like that's a very common thing when like the new guy comes in, he wants to cut any non-sure bets. Like it's good to just like chop those out because you'll take the blame for them if they don't pan out. But I remember there was some of the focus group stuff that they were doing. Based on all this feedback they got from people, the weird score was like much too high for them to like keep it around, you know?
Here's the marketing document that Microsoft made for Psychonauts. Based on the 12 focus groups conducted worldwide, the primary weakness of the game are the storyline, which is considered unoriginal, childish, and overly complex. Tongue-in-cheek nature of the game is a weakness. In addition, many feel the humor would get old, limiting replayability. Humor should be simplified and made immediately apparent. To help international appeal, limit game components that feel especially Americanized, i.e. summer camp.
We did get dropped, and we thought that all of that work that we had done was going to be for nothing.
For that to just go away, that was a horrifying feeling.
I was like, oh God. So we just told the team we need to get ready for making a demo that we're going to use to re-sign this game.
But everybody stuck around.
Because everybody believed in it, and we were at a point where you could kind of see what it was going to be, and you knew that it was something special, and so we just kept working. Yeah. You know, and I'm not 100% sure how even the company kept running at that point. I'm not, you know, I don't really know where the money came from. Maybe I don't want to know.
So we're dragging around, showing it everywhere, and it was just really grueling. That's where I started hating the word creative, because you pitch it, and then you knew the first thing the publisher said was, it's very creative, that like you weren't going to get signed. That wasn't, because that's not what they wanted to hear. They did like, that's very creative, very creative. It's a way of saying it's like, does not sound like money to me at all. And that was a really dark and horrible time. We thought this one publisher was going to sign it, and they were like, give us your routing number. We're into this. We're going to sign it. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be good. But I was running out of money. So I asked a friend of mine who I knew pretty well in the games industry, I knew had done really well, if I could borrow the equivalent of one payroll, which is about $250,000. $250,000. Gotta borrow it so I can make it to when this wire is going to come in. And he was really generous and was like, yeah, sure. I looked into it, talked to my lawyer. You can just do it. And I was like, we'll pay interest. He was like, yeah, whatever. And then I was like, okay, we're going to make it. And then went back to the office, and that publisher who got our wiring information just stopped calling us. That's just not answering our calls and just disappeared. And I was like, oh my God. Like I personally owe this guy $250,000. Like, even though I could go bankrupt and not pay him back, it's because he was like a friend of mine. I would pretty much have to the rest of my life pay him back until it was paid back. And I just like, oh my God, I can't believe I owe $250,000 to somebody and I'm gonna just lose it all.
Damn, what a day that was. I just remember Tim called us all
I think the meeting happened like just right there. That's where our old meeting space was.
And we knew something was going on because Tim's not real good at hiding his emotions. You know, his voice can kind of tremble and his lip kind of goes like this. And so we knew something bad was going to happen.
And I stood up in front of the company and like said, Wednesday's your last paycheck. We're out of money. And then I just couldn't move my throat. I just couldn't talk, and no one could talk. And I just stood there, and I heard like birds tweeting outside, and we just stood there like for like I feel like 30 seconds or a minute, just standing, just until I could like say anything else. And I was like, you can use our computers to put your resumes together, or you know, you guys can stay working here for no money if you want to see if anything happens before the rent. And then I feel like, I don't know if it was right then when I went back to my desk or a little bit later that day, but I saw the message about Majesco. Majesco's interested, and we flew out there and just somehow made that happen and signed that deal and saved the whole company. And we're able to pay that guy back with interest, the money he'd loaned us, and then the team was just like, we've got to finish this game, and everyone just threw themselves so hardly into finishing the game and making it awesome.
Towards the end, we were really going at a very, very fast speed. And we're trying to get things done, like bugs done, bam, 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 bam. So towards the end, like we all started going through all the levels.
There's a lot of detail in Psychonauts that Tim really wanted that at the time we're kind of like, ah, dude, why, it's like 2 in the morning, why are we hooking up this dialogue that 3 people are gonna see, you know?
We kind of misprioritized a lot of hard to find stuff in the game, put a lot of work into, so there's a lot of little things you can stumble upon that obviously is like 2 weeks of someone's time, and you're like, wow, I didn't know that was in there.
But now you realize those make Psychonauts special. But you know, everyone mostly kept their cool, and most of the team stuck together, and we got through it somehow.
I mean, people were sleeping under their desks. I remember Bagel sleeping under his desk. I mean, it was exhausting.
We started sending out or seeing these emails like, yeah, I just finished this level, and it was like actually fun. Like we ourselves were the first to be surprised that any of our efforts really paid off.
And that was the first time. It's like, wow, all together, it's pretty amazing.
Wow, okay, we really have a good game.
But we did it. We finished the game. Here are the things we need to talk about. Mostly the fact that we are done.
And they pull it off. Double Fine Productions finally wraps up Psychonauts on February 26th, 2005.
But I'm not going to make a huge speech because my hair is really puffy and I'm on TV. Thanks everybody a lot, and I hope you are all feeling good. So, congratulations. That's it. It's been like a roller coaster. It's been really great to see it turn into something that we really consider fun.
I think largely at the studio, it was just sort of like a sigh of relief, like once it went out the door. And you didn't have that sort of long tail that you do nowadays where it's like, okay, the game came out, time to start making DLC for it and all that other stuff. It was sort of like, all right, it's getting pressed to a disc, you know, we're done, that's it.
It was like being released from prison or coming back from war, and you're like, you don't know how to identify with outside people, you know, go to parties and stuff like that, because you're just such a tight-knit group. It was pretty comforting, actually. Dude, I gotta say though, I mean, when it was over, I definitely didn't need to look at it at all after that. And my mom was so excited, wanted us to play her Psychonauts game to help her get through it a little bit. And all of us sat in there, and Tim was playing it, and it was so quiet, because we were seeing so many bugs and so many things we wanted to fix with them. My mom was like, thanks for helping me out, and we're all, the whole time.
Everybody was really happy the way it was received.
Exploring the ins and outs of people's minds, all of which are just totally insane and fun to explore. And you're just gonna enjoy every minute of it.
When we saw the reviews, we're like, yeah, you know, like the reviews were by and large pretty good. And yeah, I think that it was a bit disappointing that it sold as poorly as it did.
What was the feeling?
I remember being really proud of it, but then thinking, like, why aren't more people buying it?
At the time, it just felt like, oh, I wonder why this game didn't just take over the world because I worked so hard on it. And I think the team took that really hard too, because they, like I said, they put everything they had into it.
Even my own family, the style, you know, the faces and stuff, like, oh, that looks weird. And I think a lot of people just might have said, oh, that's just too odd looking for me.
If it didn't sell, I mean, I was not really expecting it to sell at all. Really, I wasn't expecting it to come out for a while there. So anything was good to me, you know. I was very happy with the reception of it. So
we got all these ridiculous awards like best game no one played. I don't know if Tim is gonna like me saying this, but like he had a joke. It's like I should go tell him they're the nicest guy no one slept with.
So I was really frustrated because it had sold okay. Our numbers, they were telling us like 400,000 copies, but in the public they're saying it sold 100,000 copies. And all anyone would talk about was like how it was like a poster child for a good game that didn't sell. Can't we just talk about it being a good game instead of like how much it sold? So I had a big chip on my shoulder for a long time. But I was really happy with the response that people who did play it had to it.
Memories or that person's thought process, offering clues that say, hey, there's a bit more going on here, or maybe it's just weird. See this room? Okay, you can shrink down and go inside the board. See that window? I think about this a lot.
You know, it continued, I guess it just had it had a reputation, and there must have been enough copies of it in the wild that people did check it out. But I mean, I can't tell you how happy it makes me that people kept playing it, for sure. Yeah, we didn't expect that at all.
But I think it's that story and that world that I think people enjoyed more than anything, like more than the platforming.
And you know, it also, in a lot of ways, connects to like the like, you know, teen existence in all of us, you know.
People have found it, or they've heard about it, and they're like, oh yeah, I wanted to play that, so they bought it, and then they've told people, and they've told people.
It holds up really well, and there aren't many games like it, you know, which is really cool.
It's nice that it's one of the games that people seem to have a really special fondness for, because I feel like it's a really good-natured game. No one in Psychonauts is kind of irredeemable. They're all, when you go into their minds, you see they're just facing a lot of tough things, and you help them fight them, and help them kind of heal or overcome, and just get some control. So I feel like it's a positive, spirited game, and so it's nice that people reacted to that.
I think people just respond to all that stuff and want to see it again.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Gaming Daily for Tuesday. How y'all doing? First up, headlines. Let's get right to it. Notch wants to make Psychonauts 2.
I mean, in some ways, I have to credit Notch with some of this. When he started that process of tweeting at me, like, hey, let's make this happen, it did kind of like spark this idea of like, it could happen. We could do it. We could actually make it. Like, I thought we could never make it, but maybe we can make it. And we went down the road with him a little bit, like it was going to happen, and it ended up not working out. But by that point, that part of my brain that thought it was a possibility that could happen was already awake. It was like already lumbering towards the finish line. It was like, oh God. Now I've got this sense of like, I got to make this game and it can't be stopped. Seeing how excited, also, not just his tweet, but seeing how people reacted to it. You know, just waking up to one of those phone messages like, you should look on Twitter, and like, what? That's a lot of tweets. And just seeing how excited people were at the thought that it might happen, I was like, maybe people do want this to happen. Maybe it would be worth doing.
I mean, I'd always be excited to work on another Psychonauts.
Just getting like that energy back.
And to go back to that world, to go back to those characters, it's exciting just to think about going back and making that game again.
Do you expect it to go smoother overall?
Yeah, I'm too old for it to go the way it went the last time. I mean, we kind of all made a pact with each other that that would not happen again.
He just pointed to the UI. He said, I found this thing.
The big challenge really going at this game again is to kind of retain that like naive optimism that we had from the beginning, where we would say like, yeah, let's do that, instead of like, oh, I don't know. And I think we're experienced enough to pull that off without completely destroying ourselves. So yeah, I have very high hopes for it, for sure.
Our animation style, I think, has changed a lot too.
Oh yeah, it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, Tim keeps saying, because, you know, he talked about doing a sequel, and I just said I'm kind of terrified of doing this project again. And not even because how difficult the first one was, but I think it's more just what expectations of people have. There's people with a lot of fond memories of the game, and they want to have those. They want that again, and I think that's really hard to give people.
I really loved the first one, but they really shit the bed with this, you know, like, because there will be, and that's the thing, is that you have a team that's going to be different from the team that we had back then. They're going to have different personalities, and those personalities will be reflected in a different way, just because that's how it is. That's how people make games, you know what I mean? So the game is going to be different, and for some people it's going to be different enough where they're no longer, they don't connect with it in the same way. And that's a bummer, but I think if people, as long as everyone is okay that that's what's going to happen, then it's no problem.
What if no one likes what I'm doing? Like, well, who do I want to make like this, you know? I mean, for me, it'd be like everyone who likes Psychonauts. I would want them to like Psychonauts too. I would not want to change that. So, but I feel as long as it's coming from the same place and all of our intentions, it'll only be deepened by the fact that we have more life experiences to draw from to make this game. Crazy production on that project. And for those of you who weren't here, no hard feelings. We don't hold it against you. Hopefully you get a chance to work on a Psychonauts game in the near future. Okay. So happy birthday, and thanks. Splitting it in half. This is what we did in Broken Age. We made sure the sweet filling was right in the middle. This is actually what you do with a video game, because you always want your filler to be in the middle, never on the end or the beginning. So, there you go. How to make video games. It's easier than you think.